Hi everyone. So in the last class we have discussed about the nature of the contract and we have discussed how a contract is being completed, like what are the criteria for the fulfillment of a contract. Okay. So as we have discussed in the last class, then we have understood that for the completion of a contract, there is the requirement of the few components. Just like we have discussed, there must be the presence of the free consent of the parties. That is the most important thing at all. After the free consent thing, we have discussed about the lawful consideration and lawful object of the parties. And then the parties must be competent to enter into the contract. So these are the criteria. If the parties are fulfilling, then no doubt the contract is called as a valid contract. So if you'll ask me that what do you mean by the lawful object? What do you mean by the lawful consideration? What do you mean by the legal validity of the parties to enter into the contract? And what do we mean by the free consent of the parties that we have already discussed? Okay. Guys, there is some background noise. Just pardon me for 1 minute. We have discussed about all those things in the last class. Then the next point comes who are competent to contract. So when we're talking about that who are the parties, those who are competent to contract, then we have understood the first thing about the parties that they must have attained the age of majority according to the law. Age of majority means according to the Indian Act, we all know that 18 years is called the age of majority. 18 साल होने से उसी को हम बोलते हैं कि the guy has attained the age of the majority and now the person is able to enter into any kind of the contract. Okay. So when we're talking about the age of majority, we know that 18 years is called the age of majority for a boy or a girl to enter into the contract. The first thing, and the second thing, the person must be a sound mind, and the third point, the person is not disqualified from contracting by law to which he is the subject. That means the first thing, the person must have attended the age of majority. The second thing, the person must have been from the sound mind. Sound mind means मेंटल स्टेट, उसका दिमागी हालात सही होना बहुत जरूरी होता है. और तीसरा बात यह है कि द पर्सन इज नॉट डिस्क्वालिफाइड फ्रॉम कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग बाय एनी लॉ of which he is the subject. That means by any particular law or by particular any regulation, the person is not banned from contracting something. I'm just giving you an example of this. Just take an example of a society. Okay. uh, just take an example. You are living in living in a particular society or particular community where you have just violated certain rules and regulations of the community. So due to the public anger, what they did, the community what did, they banned you from their community, and according to the ban agreement, like they have prohibited you for a certain time period or permanently from their community. Okay. So as you are prohibited by them to enter into any kind of the contract with their community, if you are signing any kind of the contract during that particular phase, is that contract will be called as the valid contract? The answer is no. That is not going to be called as the valid contract because that contract or agreement has not been done legally, and that is not going to be called as the legal agreement or legal contract. Because as we see over here, there must be the qualification of the parties to enter into the contract. If the group of a particular community, if the group of people, they have prohibited you from their community or from entering into certain kind of the contract with them due to certain particular rules and regulations, that will be totally applicable and you cannot violate that particular regulation. First thing. Second thing, what is a sound mind for the purpose of contracting? Sound mind means what we have understood. When the person is capable of understanding the nature of the contract and forming the rational judgment as to its effect upon his interest. That means when we are talking about the sound mind for the purpose of the contracting, that means the person must have the capability or the credibility to understand the nature of the contract and to give any kind of the judgment on regard to the contract. You may ask me that, ma'am, you are talking about the nature of the contract. Then how it is going to work? Okay. Yes. Let me make you understand this in a easy manner. Just like you are talking about the party must be capable to understand the nature of the contract. That means, for example, I am signing a contract with you to sell my house. Okay. I am selling my house. I am entering into a contract with you to sell my house. So here, if we are talking about the contractual terms and conditions or contractual agreements, then it is clear that if I am selling the house, you are buying the house, we, both the parties, must have the sound mind, must have the capability to understand what exactly we are doing. If you are selling me the house and it will be mine, I am going to be the owner of this house. I must have get the clear knowledge about this. And when you are selling your house, similarly, you must have a clear picture in your mind that yes, I am selling this house and this person is going to, the ownership of the house is going to be transferred to the another person. Got it? So after knowing this fact, then comes the point capable of forming a rational judgment to its effect upon his interest. That means when you are selling me the house and when I am buying the house from you, then we both must have a legal capability to understand. We must have a legal capability to make a judgment as to effect upon its interest. That means the parties must be having the interest or having the judgment that what exactly they are doing. Judgment means if you are proposing me that, ma'am, do you want to buy the house? And yes, I am telling, yes, I want to buy that particular house. Then I must have the capability to understand your proposal that you are selling me your house. And at the same time, I must have capability to understand the proposal in my mind and get at the conclusion that yes, I should buy the house or I should not buy the house. Got it? So this is about the matter of the clarification in mind which must need to be present before any kind of the contract. Okay, clear? Okay. Then coming to the next point, we have understood what is the sound mind for the purpose of the contract. When we're talking about that, yes, you and me are entering into the contract or both the parties are entering into the contract, then the question arises, what do we understand by having a sound mind to enter into the contract? ये जो sound mind का concept है ना, वो क्या होता है? Let's understand that in a clear picture. So a person is said to be of a sound mind for the purpose of making a contract if at the time when he makes it, he is capable of understanding it and of forming a rational judgment as to its effect upon his interest. So, what does it speak? It speaks that a person is said to be of a sound mind for the purpose of making a contract. For the purpose of making a contract, a person is said to be of sound mind if at the time when he makes the contract, he is capable of understanding it and forming a rational judgment as to effect upon its interest. Okay, we have understood this. The person must having the capability to understand the contract, the nature of the contract, and the capability to do the judgment upon that particular contract. The next point comes, when the person is usually at the position of the unsound mind at the most part of the day. मान लीजिए there is a person who is suffering from mental disease, and that person is at the time of all the time of the 24 hours of the day, that person is being mentally ill. The person is suffering from mental disorder, and for the particular time period that person is getting cured, because there are certain kind of the mental diseases are there जहाँ पे ऐसा होता है कि इंसान का दिमागी हालात दिन का 24 घंटे से 1-2 घंटा ठीक रहता है, बाकी टाइम उसी का दिमागी हालात खराब रहता है. So though the point of the time duration of 1 to 2 hours, जिस वक्त में उसका दिमागी हालात सही रहता है, if the person is entering into the contract at that point of time, जब वो मेंटली सही है, अगर उसी वक्त में that person enters into any kind of the contract, then that contract is also called as the valid contract. Okay, clear? Then the next point says, when the person is usually of the sound mind but occasionally of the unsound mind, may not make a contract when he is of the unsound mind. What does it speak? It speaks that when a patient is in a lunatic asylum who is at intervals of the sound mind, may contract during those intervals. Okay. The second point, second illustration, is same man who is delirious from fever, or who is so drunk that he cannot understand the terms of a contract, or from a rational judgment as to its effect on his interest, cannot contract whilst such delirium or drunkenness lasts. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that a sane man, the person who is having the proper mindset, who is mentally not insane, who is mentally sane, who is delirious from fever, or who is so drunk that he cannot understand the terms of the contract. If the person is delirious, means that person is out of his mind, that person is either so drunk, or that person is suffering from any kind of the disease, or that person is not at a right mental state to understand the complement of the front person. That person is not mentally ready to understand that what the front person is telling to him. सामने वाला उसको क्या बोल रहा है, उस चीज को समझने का दिमाग, समझने का कोशिश उसके पास नहीं है. Okay, the first thing. The second thing, what does it speak? That the person having due to the second, the point is about the drunkenness. Okay, drunkenness means when the person is taking the alcohol, then genuinely it happens that the person becomes out of his or her mind after taking drugs, after taking alcohol, or after taking any kind of the things which is harmful. The person becomes out of the control, out of the mind, and at that moment of the time, it is clear that none of them, no person is capable to understand the nature of the contract. Okay, clear? Then the next section, section 13, speaks about the consent. Then what does consent means? Two or more persons are said to consent, or said to agree upon the same thing upon the same time. So this is a question over here. The question is very simple, that what do we understand by the consent? Consent means when the person agrees upon same thing, upon the same sense. That means if I am offering you something, if you are offering me something, then we must agree to accept each other's thing with the same thing, the exact thing, with the same sense. Got it? Yes. The next point comes about the pre-consent. Discussing about section 13, which we are dealing about the consent. So upon the consent, we have understood that two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing, upon the same sense. Okay. So you may ask me that what do we understand by the same thing upon the same sense? That we have understood that same thing upon the same sense means if you are telling me something and I am understanding it at the exact sense you have meant to me. If you have told me that Arya, I am going to pay you 1000 rupees, then I should understand that you are exactly going to pay me 1000 of the rupees. If you are going to tell me that, ma'am, you are going to take the class at 8, then you have to clarify over here that I am going to take the class at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. That should be clear, right? So here the thing is all about that the sense you are telling me that should be clear from my side. That means the exact sense you are telling me something, I should receive the same thing upon the same sense, and I should understand the exact thing upon that particular sense only. Okay. So the next thing, section 14, it speaks about the free consent. Okay. So according to section 14, the consent is said to be free when it is not caused by, there are certain criteria which speaks about that about the free consent. When consent is said to be free when it is not caused by, the first is coercion under section 50, then the undue influence under section 16, fraud under section 17, misrepresentation section 18, and mistake section 20, 21, and 22. So when we're talking about the coercion means, what do we understand? Coercion is committing or threatening to commit the activities which is prohibited by the Indian Penal Code, or according to the modern change law, that is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita by the Indian Penal Code, or the unlawful detaining. For example, coercion means the committing or threatening to commit. Let's understand it upon a clear view. Uh, मान लो you are telling me that, ma'am, if you are not buying my house or if you are not buying my land, then I am going to put fire at your home. If you are not buying my home, or if you are not doing an agreement with me, if you are not paying this much amount to me, then I am going to do this harm to you. I'm going to put fire on your house. I'm going to kidnap your mom, kidnap your dad, or any kind of the activities which is considered as the abductive activities. Either you are doing something which is prohibited by the law, or you are threatening me to do something which is prohibited by the law. You are threatening me to do certain activity which is totally illegal. आप मुझे ऐसा एक काम करने का धमकी दे रहे हो जो कि इलीगल है. ओके. And in return, you are forcing me, you are causing me, or you are uh, enforcing me that you have to do this by force. Okay. But that particular activities is totally forbidden by law. Okay. Got it? So when we're talking about the coercion, so we have understood it is all about the committing or threatening to commit certain kind of the activities which is prohibited by the Indian Penal Code. What are the activities prohibited by the Indian Penal Code? The act of the murder, kidnapping, molesting someone, outraging, or threatening, or creating the national or harming the national security. So these kind of the activities are totally prohibited by the Indian Penal Code. Yes. If any of the person is doing any kind of the activity which is prohibited by the Indian Penal Code, or according to the new act, according to the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, either you are doing something or you are threatening to do something which is prohibited by law. That means you are kidnapping my family, or you are threatening me that if you are not doing this, then I am going to kidnap your family. So there are the two things: either you are committing the act or you are threatening me to commit that particular act. अगर वो काम आप खुद कर देते हो, नहीं तो वो काम करने के लिए आप मुझे धमकी दे रहे हो, यू आर थ्रेटनिंग मी. Got it? So in that particular circumstances, we can talk that this is called as the coercion. Okay. So we can understand that it is immaterial that yes, the second point what we told, the unlawful detaining or threatening to detain. Okay, so how do we understand by the unlawful detention? Unlawful detention means prohibiting someone from going outside. Unlawful detain means, for example, I am staying at my home. What you are doing? You are coming to my home. You are putting bomb in front of my gate, and you are telling me that if I am stepping outside, then you are going to kill me by bomb. So with the fear, I have to stay inside the house. I lost my freedom and I am not able to move outside. So that is called the unlawful detention. यहाँ पे क्या होता है? You are detaining me unlawfully. You are forcibly asking me to stay inside the house, or you are threatening me that if I am going outside the house, then some kind of wrong is going to happen with me. So this kind of activity comes under the coercion, and this is the activity of the unlawful detention. Okay. Then the next point comes about the undue influence. Undue influence means when one person, one of the parties, is at the position of dominating the another parties, where one party is at the little higher position and the second party is at the little lower position. Higher lower means मान लीजिए I am your teacher and you are my student. मान लो you are at a I am working under you and you are my higher officer. Okay. So where one party is at the dominant position than the other party, you are a person who is at the dominant position than me, where you can control me, where either I respect you, I follow you, or I have to follow you. I have to follow your words. I don't have any other way. और यू हैव इन्फ्लुएंस्ड मी मेंटली, जिसके वजह से मैं आपका बात मान रहा हूँ. उसको मैं मतलब हिंदी पे समझा देता हूँ. ऐसा होता है ना कि कभी कभी आप कुछ लोगों को बहुत मानते हो, कोई बड़े हो, कोई टीचर हो, आपका कोई सीनियर हो, आप हमेशा मानते हो ना कि अरे यार ये जो बोल रहे हैं ना ये एकदम सही बोल रहे हैं, ये कभी गलत हो ही नहीं सकते. जैसे कि वी फॉलो सर्टेन काइंड ऑफ द रिलीजियस गुरुज एंड ऑल. तो हम ये फॉलो करते हैं कि चलो ये हमारे गुरु है एंड ये जो बोल रहे हैं ना वो हमेशा अच्छी बात ही बोलते हैं. दिस पर्सन इज ऑलवेज 100% राइट. ओके, सो वी रेस्पेक्ट देम इन दैट सेंस. सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द undue influence, then if there is certain kind of the situation, certain kind of the relation between two persons where one person is at the dominant position than others, either you are following that particular person or either you are influenced by that particular person, or the third situation is you are under the control of that particular person. That person is your boss, that person is your senior, and you have no right to disobey that particular person. So in that circumstances, if that person is creating any kind of the situation in front of you where that person is influencing you to do certain kind of act which is not right for you, but that person is insisting you, and with the insist of that person you are doing that particular act, that is called as the undue influence. Okay, I'm giving an example of this, just like take an example. You are my student, okay? I am at the position where I can influence you. I can just encourage you that yes, please do this, do that. Okay. So when you are at the dominant position than me, जहाँ पे आप मुझसे ज्यादा डोमिनेंट पोजीशन पे हो, एंड वहां पे ये होता है ना कि यू आर इन्फ्लुएंसिंग मी टू डू सर्टन काइंड ऑफ द एक्टिविटी. For example, I am at the dominant position than you. I am a teacher, and what I am doing, I am going to you and I am telling. So what is happening? I am going to you and I am telling you that yes, listen. If you are selling your home at the price of the 50% of the price, na, then I am going to give you uh, the whole lesson at the free of cost. Okay. So here the cost of your home, आपका जो घर है ना, उस घर का जो प्राइस है, दैट इज अराउंड, मान लीजिए कि उसी का प्राइस जो है वो 15 लाख है. तो मैं आपको ये बात इन्फ्लुएंस करती हूँ कि देखो, मैं आपका फ्री का सब्सक्रिप्शन करवा दूंगी, आपका प्रमोशन करवा दूंगी, आपको जॉब पे रख लूंगी, आपका कैरियर सेटलमेंट करवा दूंगी, आपके लिए मैं ये सारी चीजें कर दूंगी, एंड इन रिटर्न यू हैव टू गिव मी द हाउस एट द हाफ ऑफ द प्राइस. अगर घर का प्राइस 15 लाख है तो आप मुझे 6-7 लाख के बीच में वो घर बेच दो. ओके. सो हियर व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? I am influencing you to do certain kind of activities which is actually not right. अगर घर का प्राइस 15 लाख है तो उसी को 6 से 7 लाख में बेचना, is it the right thing? The answer is no. This is not right to sell the house at the price of 6 to 7 lakh, where the price of the house is actually 15 to 16 lakh, right? But यहाँ पे I am influencing you. This is called the undue influence. I am influencing you that yes, please do this. Then I am going, in return, I am going to settle you down. I am going to give you a good job. I am trying to influence you for the wrongful activity, and that is called the wrongful influence or undue influence. The third thing we have discussed, that is the fraud. So you can ask me, ma'am, what do you understand by the fraud? Fraud means the fraudulent activity. Okay. So you can ask me about the fraudulent activity. The fraud is very simple. We have discussed it. There is a very huge difference between the fraud and misrepresentation. Let's understand it together. Section 17 explains about the fraud and section 18 explains about the misrepresentation. What happens in the fraud, that in the fraud, the active concealment of the fact, the promise without intention of the performing it, where the one party deceives the other party, and the last point is any act or omission which the law declares as fraudulent. Okay. And you are knowingly that particular thing, that is called the fraud. जैसे कि आपको पता है बेटिंग लगाना, जुए में बेटिंग लगाना गलत चीज है, एंड दैट इज प्रोहिबिटेड बाय द लॉ. बट आप जानबूझ के किसी को बेटिंग के थ्रू कुछ पैसा लगा रहे हो, आप जानबूझ के लोगों से बेटिंग के नाम से पैसा कलेक्ट कर रहे हो. सो टेल मी, इज it the right activity? No. This is considered as the fraudulent activity as per se. You are promising me that, ma'am, I am going to pay you 15,000 of the rupees at each month in return of the teaching. अगर आप मेरा इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट का और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का पूरा कोर्स कवर करवा दे रहे हैं, then I am going to pay you 15,000 of the rupees per month. But in your mind, you have put one thing that yes, I am not going to pay ma'am at 15,000 rupees. मैं तो 1 महीना क्लास करके फिर कहाँ गायब हो जाऊंगी. I am not going to pay her. Okay. So this is the activity of the fraud. जहाँ पे आपका दिमाग पे ये होता है कि आप मेरे को कुछ चीज छुपा रहे हो, आपको पता होता है कि आप ये चीज नहीं करने वाले हो, कोई चीज गलत है, and you are intentionally hiding me that particular thing, that comes under the activity of the fraud. And coming to the part of the misrepresentation, where You feel the thing is right, but wherever the thing is actually wrong. आप मेरे को आके बोल रहे हो कि मैम, आर यू गोइंग टू बाय माई हाउस? आई आस्क्ड यू, यस आई वांट टू बाय द हाउस, बट do the house is having at a good condition? But telling me, yes ma'am, the house is at the very good condition, but you actually don't know that the house is at the very bad condition. घर पे कोई दिक्कत है जो आपको पता नहीं है. The house is standing at the disputed land, जो कि आप मानते हो कि वो लैंड डिस्प्यूटेड नहीं है, उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बट यू एग्जैक्टली डोंट नो द रियलिटी. आपको लगता है कि घर पे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बट द हाउस इज हैविंग सर्टेन काइंड ऑफ द इश्यूज ऑफ द लैंड. जहाँ पे घर खड़ा हुआ है, जहाँ पे घर का मतलब घर बनाया हुआ है, वहां पे कुछ दिक्कत है. मेरे को नहीं पता, आपको भी नहीं पता, आपने क्या किया? मुझे घर बेच दिया. सो दिस इज द एक्टिविटी ऑफ द मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन. आप गलत चीज को सही मान के बेच रहे हो. You are believing the thing to be true. You are believing the thing to be right, but in real, the thing is not right at all. Okay, got it? So this is called the activity of the misrepresentation. Okay. Then comes to the point of the mistake. Okay. There are two things we have understood. The first is mistake of the fact and mistake of the law. So, section 21 and 22 and 23 speaks about the mistake of the law. Section 21 and section 22 and 23 speaks about the mistake of the fact. Okay. So, let's understand what do we understand by the mistake of law under section 21. A contract is not voidable because it was caused by a mistake as to any law in force in India, but a mistake as to a law not in force in India has the same effect as a mistake of the fact. Okay. See, what is happening? A and B are making a contract with the erroneous belief that the contract or the particular debt is backed by the Indian law of the limitation, but which is actually not. Then the contract is not voidable as nature. This is valid as nature. That means clearly saying, if you believe some law as the true law, as the existing law, you believe that there are certain sections of the, for example, take an example of section 138 of the NI Act. Okay. There are certain amendments recently happened in 2023 upon the NI Act, but you were totally unaware about the fact. So what you were doing, you are entering into the contract with someone according to section 138 of the NI Act with the old provision of the NI Act, with the old 138 of the NI Act. You are not aware about the new amendments. But after the completion of the agreement, after the completion of the contract, you are getting aware that yes, this law has been changed. तो हिंदी में समझे तो आपको पता नहीं है कि लॉ में कुछ बदलाव लाया गया है, या कोई लॉ को गलत बोला गया है, या फिर कोई लॉ को प्रोहिबिट कर दिया गया है. आपको ये चीज का अंदाजा ही नहीं है, बट आपने क्या किया है ना, बिना सोचे समझे, बिना जाने उसी एग्रीमेंट पे आपने एंट्री ले लिया है, आपने उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन कर दिया है. एंड बोथ ऑफ द पार्टीज हु आर द पार्टीज टू द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, उनमें से किसी को भी इस बात का कोई अंदाजा तक नहीं है. सो माय क्वेश्चन इज, at this point of time, at this case, is the contract called as a lawful contract? यहाँ पे क्या उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को हम इलीगल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बोल सकते हैं? The answer is no. The contract is not voidable in nature. Either the contract can be a valid contract. Okay. Then the next point comes section 22, contract caused by the matter of the fact. So when there is a contract is not voidable merely because it was caused by one of the parties to it bring under as a matter of the fact. If there is only a small mistake of the fact over here, then that doesn't make the contract totally invalid in nature. अगर कहाँ पे आपका मिस्टेक ऑफ फैक्ट आ जाता है, that doesn't make the contract as invalid in nature. Okay, so that is explained under section 22 and 23 of the Indian Contract Act. Okay, then comes section 24. It speaks about the void agreement. So void agreement means the agreement which is void ab initio. The agreement which is not existing as per the nature, which is not having any kind of the legal existence. So what is void agreement? We'll be revising this in the next class. This is all for today, guys. Wrapping up the class over here. Thank you.